Hey everybody, in this video we're going to talk about condition. No, I don't mean physical condition, because this right here, this is pretty sad. We're going to talk about book conditions and everything that you need to know to protect your account when listing on Amazon. Coming up next. Hey everybody, it's Manny with Manny's Book Bag. I'm back with another video. Sorry about that intro, but part of my fitness quest has been to be more active. And what better way to be active than with a video about conditions? Of course, I'm talking about book conditions. Having a solid grasp of book conditions, I believe to be one of the keys for any new seller to not only protect their account, but also to really make buyers extremely happy. If you have happy buyers, the result is going to be positive feedback. And positive feedback is key if you want to be buy box eligible and start making more money. With this video, what I want to do is go over condition notes, go over some misconceptions, give you some of the most common mistakes when it comes to listing books, and then give you some of my personal best practices. I'm starting to get pretty close to home, so what we're going to do is we're going to take up this conversation in the office.
All right, here I come, I'm coming. It looks as though we came inside just in time because the skies are starting to open up now. All right, condition notes. What I've done for you today, I've set aside a couple of books to help me illustrate certain things about condition notes, and I hope it really helps clear things up. Now, where I discuss things that are verbatim from Amazon's condition guidelines, I'm going to make sure that I explain them that way. If at any point I'm showing you something that I have personally decided to do in my inventory to simplify listing, then I'll let you know that that's what that is. And I think that's important because if I show you something that I do, you should know that you don't need to do that, versus the things that I'm reading directly from Amazon's condition guidelines, you should really know. So let's get started. A couple of weeks ago, Amazon sent out an email to talk about the listing of books as new. Now, the scare of the new and like new textbooks being restricted, that's fresh on our minds. So when I start talking about conditions, I'm going to start right at the very top. I don't list any books as brand new. I am not going to until my wholesale accounts are fully established. I feel that it's really important to just kind of understand that you're still going to hear people saying that they're going to list a book as new. I would just really be careful about doing so myself. I don't think it's worth it unless you do have the backing of the company or an approved distributor to say, yes, here's proof that this person is approved to sell these as new. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I don't really list as like new either. I list in very good condition, and acceptable. Very good, I would say, is very infrequently. I can honestly tell you that 90% of my inventory gets sent in good condition just about no matter what. Some of it has to do with over-delivering to the buyer, but a lot of it has to do with protecting my account. And also, it makes listing extremely quick if the majority of my books fall under the exact same condition note. So let's get started. I'm going to start with a like new book to show you what this should look like. Now, keep in mind, these books that I'm going to show you, they're not valuable. I wouldn't recommend sourcing them for listing purposes. These are books that I had laying around that I think would really be good examples of something. So here we go. This particular book right here is a good example of what a like new book probably looks like. The cover is immaculate. There will be zero creasing anywhere. Your spine is right on, no damage, no creasing. When I go through these books to check out the insides, first I check the outside. When I'm going to grade a book, I grade from the cover out, and I say, right now this book looks like new. Is there anything inside that makes me think otherwise? So I will go through once, check for any writing. I go through a second time. At this point, I'm taking what I know from the outside and saying, is this book still like new? If I see any sort of dog-earing, writing, highlighting, it automatically knocks it down to good. If I see any sort of wear, anything at all that would bring it down, that's what I'm basically looking for. I don't even see anywhere I'm feeling that this is actually a very tight binding. If this was getting pulled off of a bookshelf in a store, I would believe this was a new book. So in my estimate, this book would be like new. Another tip, once I'm done and I know that there's no writing or highlighting, I go back to the first couple of pages one last time to make absolutely sure. If you're ever going to have anyone put an address label with their name or an inscription or a bookstore price on the inside, it is typically in your first couple of pages. So just be aware. And I would honestly say that this book, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. It is an extremely clean copy of the book, feels brand new, so it would certainly be appropriate to list something like this as like new. Now, typically what would really be the differentiator on a title between like new and very good would usually have to do with cover wear. This one does not seem to have even very much of anything at all, not even like a tiny nick or a scratch really. But if it did have some scuffing, if it did have a little bit of obvious shelf wear for me, I would certainly be more inclined to list as very good. Now, very good would basically not be that much different than like new, except that it would show slight wear. And that could be from bookstore handling, that could be shelf wear. But if you have a little bit of wear and it's nothing major that knocks it down to good, you're probably looking at a very good book. I'm going to move on to this next one here because this would be an example of what I think is a very good book, where the outside is going to have just the slightest tiny bit of marking, just a little tiny bit right there, okay? But when you look at the outside, it is actually extremely clean. It's a nice paperback. There does not seem to be any creasing or serious creasing of any type. So when I look at this from the outside, I think that I'm looking at a very good book. Then I go and I rifle through the pages under very good light, of course. And I do this twice. I always do it twice. And once again, checking the first couple of pages. And when I don't see that there's any writing in here, and I feel that this is a firm binding, this would be an example of a very good condition book. Now, there is something that you should be aware of in very good condition, and that is that in Amazon's condition guidelines for the category, it says that the book is not marred by writing or highlighting. When Amazon uses language like this, it's unfortunate, but it's a little bit of gray area because it revolves around the definition of marred. Does marred by writing and highlighting mean that it doesn't have a lot? Or does marred means that it's a little less perfect, which is the literal definition of marred, which means if it has any writing at all, it goes right to good. This one is a gray area. Amazon says that it can't be marred by writing or highlighting, so some sellers are going to say if there's a name written inside and it's just the one thing, or if there is one underlining on page 142, it does not affect the grade of the book. And they will actually leave that note in the description. I'll let you folks know immediately. If I were to have found a single line in that book underlined, I would be grading that book as good. I always err on the side of caution, and I really aim to make the buyer extremely happy with accurate descriptions and really playing it conservatively with the condition notes. If that's not you and you want to call it what it is and really kind of just ride that line, understanding that things are probably going to be okay, then absolutely go for it. This is why we're running our business, right? Because we make decisions for ourselves. But if you're conservative with this stuff like I am, then you probably want to play it safely and make sure that you over deliver to a buyer. Here's another one. Okay, the front cover doesn't really look like it has very much wear on it at all. There is a very, very slight bit where it was touched right there, and the back cover is also clean. No creasing, no marks of any kind. That small little incidental notch right there kind of falls right in line with what very good is. It will show slight wear. And then, if I'm thinking that the book is very good, I rifle through the pages really quickly, looking for any writing, highlighting, excessive wear, any sort of buildup, debris, or anything like that, and I don't see it. Now, one thing that caught me when I was first selling books, I was not aware of this. I thought that these edges right here that look like they're pretty sharp and jagged, I thought I got a hold of a book that was somehow damaged. And it's not. That's called a deckled edge. A deckled edge is actually a bit of an older style for pages, and we still see them from time to time. If you're new and you've never seen them before, just be aware that there's nothing wrong with that book. It's not damaged. That's called a deckled edge. Now I'm going to talk about what is usually the largest category of condition note for me, good condition. There will be a lot of reasons why a book could be in good condition. A book could be in good condition if it's just got pretty moderate wear, where it's quite a bit more wear, where you can't classify it as a book in very good condition. You're pretty safe going into good condition. A book that doesn't have writing or highlighting could still be a good condition book based on the wear on the outside. I'll give you a good example here of a book in good condition. This right here. This book, which hopefully you can see this, but it's going to have some scratching, a couple of marks right here. It has a fairly pronounced divot right there. It has a little more wear on the back, and when I go through this book, the pages do feel really good and the binding is nice, but the exterior wear on the book is going to force me to list the book in good condition. Now, if there was nothing else to disclose about this book, it would go under good condition, and it would go under my general good condition description, where it would just have wear but clean pages. In this case, as I went through the book, right on the very front is a inscription that is written. And for me, it's still going to be in good condition, but instead I would use a condition note that I've got preset that indicates that it would have an inscription to the original owner. Another book in good condition that I want to discuss with you is library books. Library books are going to typically have some sort of library book stickers, perhaps some library markings on the back, and quite often you'll see stamps on the top like discarded or withdrawn. Now, a lot of times there's controversy about library books because a lot of folks think that you have to list them as acceptable. At the same time, other people think that you can list library books in very good condition or like new condition and you're just fine. You're not. According to the Amazon condition guidelines, a library book has to either be sold in good condition or acceptable condition. Now, the book that I've got in my hands here, as I go through it, the pages are clean. There is no additional markings of any kind. There's no other writing outside of the library stamps and stickers. So a book like this, quite honestly, where the spine is fine, would be sold as good condition, former library. The only other thing that I would add is that if it has a Mylar cover on it, I include that, it is protected in Mylar. And since you have to cover all barcodes, if you have any of these library scannable barcodes, you will want to cover these up. The only other thing that I want to pay attention to with library books, you want to smell them. A lot of times the way that they're stored and the way that they're kept, it's not always the best. They're in a place and they're in there for a long time in storage, and they can develop an odor, a very musty, like a book odor, I would say. It doesn't always come out. You can absolutely, you could waste a lot of time trying to remove odors from a valuable book, and sometimes it just never comes out, or if it does, it only comes out for a short time and it comes back. So I would be very careful to make sure that it's not going to offend a buyer with the way that it smells. That could lead to negative feedback, and it's just not something that you want to do. Now, there is a such thing as library books that are sold in acceptable condition, and that's a little more vague. It doesn't describe so well what it is. But what I would say is that if you're looking at a library book and there are additional markings or writing or highlighting, anything other than just your typical library stamps and markings, I would say makes it acceptable. Now, I want to talk to you about acceptable as well, because I know that a lot of sellers just will not source a book that they deem to be acceptable. And in my business model, that wouldn't work at all. I look for all types of books that are able to be sold on Amazon, and I do my best not to put a personal judgment on what I would want to receive or not. I think that we do that quite often, where we look at it from the buyer's point of view instead of being in business to move product. Once again, our businesses are ours, and we have to make decisions on things that make us comfortable and make us feel like we're making money and at the same time protecting ourselves. But if you're not selling acceptable books, make sure you have a really good reason besides I wouldn't want to receive that. Here's a fine example, and it's one that gets abused quite often. When I look at this book right here, it actually seems like it would be in good condition, except that it has a tear on the front cover. I have seen many sellers where they would repair this with book tape and list the book as good. Outside of very minor wear on the cover, a very small nick here, if a book has a tear in it, it automatically goes to acceptable condition. Now, here is why, and this is debatable. The condition notes indicate that the dust jacket has to be intact. And once again, that's the gray area, just like when we discussed what does marred mean. Does intact mean that it just has to be there and look like this? Or does it mean that it has to be in proper condition? Does it mean that it has to be whole? It is personally my belief that when they say a dust jacket has to be intact, it means that it has to be whole. For you to have one like this makes this book acceptable right off the bat, even if nothing else is wrong with the book, and this book is a good condition book. Now, if you're going to list the book as acceptable, you actually have a decision to make, because according to Amazon's condition guidelines, you could take this mangled looking dust jacket and throw it away and sell the book missing a dust jacket, and it's still in acceptable condition. There's going to be times when you're better off leaving the dust jacket on, and then there's going to be times where the dust jacket makes for a really bad presentation, and when you take the dust jacket off, it actually looks more appealing. So I would say that there have been a few times where I have actually taken the dust jacket and thrown it away and sold the book without dust jacket, and I guarantee you that when the buyer opened that box, they were actually very happy and very surprised that they received a book that looked so nice. Now, I don't have an example of this one, but I do want to bring it up because it's super important with acceptable condition. If you have a book that is heavily written in and heavily highlighted, a lot of times it'll be like every other page, but it just seems like there's writing and highlighting everywhere. More than likely, you're looking at a book that is acceptable. What you're going to want to do when you look at the pages is make absolutely sure that you don't have any text that is missing or obscured. If somebody like crossed out a bunch of text, or you just can't make it out because it was too dark, if any text is at all missing or obscured, missing pages, anything like that, those books are unacceptable. and not fit for sale on Amazon. And the last thing I got to talk about is water damage. I had an awesome conversation on a Facebook group with a friend of mine, and quite honestly, she was correct. She helped me kind of recalibrate my thinking on this. Because I would sell water damaged books if they were valuable enough, and I wouldn't pay attention to a small stain or anything like that. But she brought up an amazing point, and I can't take credit for it. There are two sets of condition guidelines, correct? There are the general condition guidelines, and then there are the category specific guidelines. The category specific guidelines, if they provide any additional guidelines, they would supersede anything else. But they can't violate the general condition guidelines. So here's what I say about water damage. Can you sell it? I believe you can sell water damage. There's nothing in the condition guidelines that eliminates water damaged books from being sold on Amazon. But there's a couple of things that you really want to think about and something you really want to make absolutely sure of. I don't want to sell a book that is acceptable with the page wrinkling and stuff from water damage for a $2 profit or a $3 profit. Generally speaking, if I sell a book that has water damage, it is because the profit on that book is worth it. We're talking about $20, $30, $50, and usually it's a textbook, because I hate to say it, where all buyers are equal and all buyers are buyers, but students just don't care. They want the materials, they want the book, and they want the discount. So you're throwing away money if you're not selling a textbook because it has a little bit of water damage on there. Here's when you can't sell a water damaged book. In the general condition guidelines, it is extremely specific that you can't sell any materials that are stained or moldy. If you have a book and it has obvious exposure to moisture and you see the signs of mold, or you see where it left a coffee stain, this is where I changed my mind from about a month and a half ago. You really, according to Amazon, can't sell that book on Amazon. I want to bring that up because I think it's very important that when we look at book conditions, we fail to look at the big picture and see that there are also general condition notes that are there to guide us. But here's the question of the day. What part of what I said today do you agree with? What part do you disagree with? What parts of your process are different from mine when it comes to grading books? Go ahead and leave in the comments below. I'm looking forward to read the comments and see what everybody's doing. That's all I've got for you today. If you like this video and you want to see me make more of them, please remember to share, like, and subscribe to support the channel. And if you haven't hit the like button yet, go ahead and light it up blue right now. And also, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and tap on that book bag up there. And once you're subscribed, make sure you hit the bell. That's going to set you up with notifications so that you know when new videos drop. Until next time, let's go make some money.